I'm Andrea Fan Hobbs, and welcome to the South Orange Report, where we feature the lifestyle and the leadership in the village of South Orange. And my special guest is the president of our lovely village, Ms. Sheena Cullum. Welcome, Madam President, and thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have so many questions for you, and this is going to be fun. You know, one of the easiest interviews you will probably have during your tenure. How's that?
I love it.
Okay, good.
Let's go.
I want to know, and the villagers would love to know, what has attracted you to stay on in South Orange after graduating from Seton Hall? And why do you want to be the president of the village?
Well, it's a long story. So I came to South Orange because I was on the speech and debate team at Seton Hall University. I was recruited from Starkville, Mississippi. And I remember my parents, we were in my Isuzu Rodeo Sport. We're driving up. I've got one of those big TVs because flat screens weren't invented yet, and so we've got all my clothes and the TV, and we're like driving up to New Jersey. I can see my mom in the passenger side seat. She's got like tears and all that stuff, letting go of her baby girl. We get into South Orange, and I absolutely loved it. I believe that we stopped by the Dunkin' Donuts, a couple of the shops, and I got out of the car, and I'm just like, wow, I love it here. And so I fell in love from the get-go. I'm like, there's a train station, there's a college. It just seemed all big and very city-like, even though it was more suburban, but with access to the city. We get on the campus. I remember going to freshman orientation, and one of the first questions was, you know, where the city council meetings at?
Oh,
you know, at that point I was being judged by my colleagues. Of course, I run for, you know, our class council and all that kind of stuff because I've always loved student government. And so I got here. I learned about the board of trustees. I started going to meetings when I was 17 at the time. I became addicted. I started meeting residents in the community, and it was just kind of a love fest. Like, I just loved everything South Orange. And I got involved with advocacy groups. I think the first organization was the South Orange Alliance for Redevelopment. So I met some of the residents. I started the Village Liaisons Committee on campus because I wanted to build kind of this college atmosphere. I thought we could be so much better than what we were in terms of building that Seton Hall and South Orange relationship. And that was kind of my first exposure to the residents and the town government and the police department and all these folks.
So you were plugged in from the very beginning.
Oh, everything, religiously. I set up my Maplewood Online account, I think, when I was like 19 years old. And I was like, look at this, look at all the debates that are happening. And I fell in love.
People are very passionate who live here about
absolutely.
the village. So what's your vision for the village now that you are our Madam President?
What isn't the vision? Well, going back to my time at Seton Hall, I always thought the opportunity was building a college town. I'd love to see an anchor store of the university in our downtown. I love student housing in our commercial districts. I think there's a lot to be said about retail and the shopping experience. We've got some great developments coming online, one being with Third and Valley. We saw finally the Bifas lot now turned into the Gateway.
But let me ask you, what anchor stores are we targeting, or are you specifically targeting?
Well, the challenge is the parking standards.
Yes.
This is something that I talk about in conferences all the time, is that people say, like, can you get an Anthropology? Can you get a Panera? All these big names. And normally what they require is sufficient amounts of parking, which is not something that we can offer. In South Orange, in our downtowns, we follow a shared model of parking. You know, when retailers locate to, say, Route 10 or Route 1, they're counting the number of vehicles that are driving by. That's how they decide whether or not they're going to create a destination store. When you're in communities like South Orange, smart growth communities, what they're looking for is pedestrian traffic.
Yes.
And we have, with us right now, we have some good developments happening in our business corridors. We have Seton Hall, which at any given time has 10,000 faculty, staff, and students that contribute to foot traffic. And then our train station, which is really important, which boasts roughly 4,000 riders every single day going into the city or other destinations. So our sell for these big retailers in the absence of parking is to be able to say the pedestrian traffic is steady. You're going to have a lot of people walking right in front of your storefront at any given time. So that's our selling.
So who are the targets?
Oh gosh, we have so many targets. I could tell you tomorrow.
Tell me one good one.
I can tell you, I can't give you the specific name, but tomorrow myself along with Bob Zuckerman, who's the executive director of the Village Center Alliance Alliance, we are meeting with a Korean restaurant because I am half Korean. My mother is Korean. And so I told Bob one of the first things was I would love to have a Korean restaurant. And so I took a picture of bibimbap, which is one of the signature dishes of the Korean world, and I put it on Facebook thinking it could be crickets. And then all of a sudden there's like 250 likes, there's comments, we love bibimbap. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got to get a Korean restaurant.
Wow.
And so that's one thing. I've also been working with Seton Hall because I'd love to have their campus bookstore in our central business district. Like, we need some type of anchor that shows you as soon as you get into South Orange, as soon as you get off the train, like, this is South Orange, home to Seton Hall University. And I think having a welcome center, a bookstore, if you look at the Gateway, they call it the Gateway in New Brunswick, where they have a bookstore, Barnes and Nobles mixed, and they partnered with Rutgers University, is a really great anchor for the business district. And I feel like we could do something really cool, mixed with a cafe or of some sort, but just having that presence would be wonderful. There's a new, where the family buffet is, there's a Thai restaurant, fusion place coming in there. In the Neelam spot, there's another Indian restaurant. So there is a lot of interest. And what I think people say is there's a lot of vacant storefronts.
Yes.
A lot of those properties, there are people who are developers who are looking to redevelop blocks. So it is no fault of our Village Center Alliance or the lack of recruitment, is that the property owners right now are looking to make significant renovations and investments into those existing properties. Wonderful. And that's why some of those spots don't have new tenants, because bringing in somebody to say, eventually you're going to have to leave in the next 6 months and a year isn't really fair. So that's why they're remaining empty right now.
We're going to come back to the developments.
Okay.
Let me ask you about the first few months in office. I would ask my daughter when she was in primary school at the end of every day, what are your roses, what are your thorns? So what were the wonderful things about the day, and what were the challenging things? So what have your roses been since taking office, and what are the thorns? And essentially, what do you know now that had you known day 1, 2, and 3 would have made life so much easier for you?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the truth. We're on camera. Okay, so I love every second of it. It is everything that I hoped it would be. No, it is absolutely true.
Everybody plays nice.
No, and that's the part that's so exciting about it, is that you meet all these different personalities, and ultimately, and I use this example on the campaign trail, is that there's all these moving pieces to any good community. Everybody has their interests, things that they want to see, things that they really dislike, and it is the job of the village president and the governing body to create the total picture. Is that we're continuously shifting puzzle pieces around to try and create what this beautiful picture is. And for me, it's Destination South Orange. I always use that. We coined that phrase in our campaign to talk about South Orange being a destination for anything and everything people want out of this community. And so I think the challenging part is what makes me the most happy. The downside is I hadn't anticipated the time commitment. I did a lot as a trustee. I was on the governing body for 2 years. I was a volunteer for 14 years. Like, I'm not scared of hard work. But because it's a small community, we have 16,000 residents, and then we have 10,000 on Seton Hall's campus, there's a personal connection that people have with me and that I have with them, where we're on Facebook or we're on Twitter, or I've been to neighborhood meetings where people feel very comfortable just calling me directly or emailing me directly and expecting a pretty quick response, because we have those relationships. And I run
so you
out
have
of
to create some boundary now.
I've run out of time in the day, and because I spend a lot of time behind the computer and in meetings, it's stopped me from being with what I deem the most desirable part of the job, which is with the people that I serve. I loved going to neighborhood meetings and block parties and events, and those were all the things that I felt great about, is because then you get to actually listen to people, and you're, hey, what do you think about this? You get all these informal conversations with folks about what they like, what they don't like, what they don't understand, and the questions. And I wish I had more of those answers.
So what are the hot buttons from people going to your community meetings and activities? What are you hearing?
Well,
what do people really want? Or what isn't the village that people would like it to be?
Well, I think the most recent is public safety. And I have a lot of data on this because I chaired the Public Safety Committee for 2 years. Prior to getting elected to the Board of Trustees, I was the chair of the Citizens Public Safety Committee. So public safety is something that's very important to me. And what I tell residents, because we'll have incidents happen, we're not in a bubble. We don't live in a bubble where we don't experience crime, we do. But ultimately, at the end of the day, my experience and that of the governing body and how we feel about public safety is we like to get information out to people we have an online police blotter, we use our neighborhood watch organization, we let our community relations folks know that when things happen, we want to share with the residents, we want them to be empowered with knowledge. But with that comes a perception from folks that crime might be actually increasing, and that's just not the case at all. In fact, we've been in a continuous decline of Part 1 crimes, which is serious crimes, over the past 5 years. In fact, during the campaign, I produced a chart that showed a 40% decrease in crime, Part 1 crimes. So
people certainly can't choose this as a destination if they're concerned about public safety.
Absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, we have theft. That's probably the one that we see the most. If you look at our Part 1 crime information and our crime index, Seton Hall's population is not calculated in the number of people that we have living in this community. So you might see it and say, wow, it seems like South Orange has a little bit more than its surrounding towns, meaning Maplewood or Milburn or these desirable communities that people say, we want crime indexes like that. And it's because that 10,000 plus population, because they are not year-round residents, aren't calculated. So say you're having a frat party and then a fight happens or something, it's counted in the Part 1 crimes, but the population of the students who are here 9 months out of the year don't calculate into the actual crime index.
So the public safety is an issue.
Yes.
Our educational system is always going to be an issue given the amount of taxes that our village residents pay.
Sure.
What are the educational system issues that you're tackling, and how are you doing on that?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm committed to, and is the entire Board of Trustees is actually working better with the Board of Education. What I've seen and what I witness is a disconnect between what the municipalities are doing, both South Orange and Maplewood, and the policies of the Board of Education. I have a great relationship with all the board members. I've committed that when they need things to reach out, documentation, numbers, student information, whatever it may be, like we have to be partners. We are now meeting regularly, informally, with administrators from both Maplewood and the school district and South Orange to talk about issues. Our next meeting is not this Thursday, the following Thursday, so that we're having an ongoing conversation.
And do you have a sense of what the two most pressing issues?
Well, I think the state aid one is one that one of the Board of Ed members, Jeff Bennett, he's just been a champion. And we talk about how we're underfunded as a district, but ultimately we don't have much political clout in the State House, and I think that's a problem.
So we have to amp up our lobbyist
activity? Here's the thing. I don't even think we need a lobbyist. I think we need to, as I shared with Mr. Bennett, if we're able to connect with all the other districts who are in our exact same position, we're underrated. Some districts are overated. And really what we're just looking is for our fair share. If we are able to touch every single one of those municipalities who are underaided like us, soon it's not 16,000 residents in South Orange or 25,000 in Maplewood. Soon you are a coalition of a lot of these first suburbs where you can really start to lobby on behalf of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people who are in the same position that we are.
Well, hold that thought.
Okay.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with the South Orange Report and our village president, Ms. Sheena Cullum.
After 17 years working as a mason, Mike was laid off. I met him when he came into the library looking for help. He found a job opening, but the application was only online. Mike said he'd spent his entire life around tools, but had never used a computer. I showed him how, and he ended up applying for numerous jobs online. I saw Mike the other day. His new computer skills paid off. He's working again.
New Jersey libraries are transforming lives. Tell us your story.
Welcome back to the South Orange Report, and it is my pleasure to have our village president, Sheena Cullum, So, Madam President, just before the break, we were having a rousing conversation about a few things.
Sure.
I want to get back to the discussion of the development.
Okay.
Is the commercial and residential development good for our village? Yes, no. A lot of conversation about the development being good for the developers because land is so valuable.
Sure.
Are we giving them tax abatements? So how is the development good for the village
Okay.
and the villagers?
All right. We could be here for a few days talking about all these. So I guess the most...
Because I think this is a pressing issue.
It
as
really
people
is.
see the burgeoning
Sure.
developments and the traffic patterns changing.
Absolutely. I think responsible development is really important for South Orange. If you look at our state development and redevelopment plan, we're considered a growth area for the state. And what defines, and professionally, I forgot to mention this earlier, I'm the executive director of the American Planning Association in New Jersey. So I work with professional planners, transportation experts, developers, land use attorneys. So I get to see all different sides to this discussion. And I think that what we're doing in South Orange is very responsible. It's very environmentally friendly, and it's what makes us a leading smart growth community. So if you think about a growth area and why we're a growth area, I don't want to say an overgrowth area, but just a growth area where we can handle some capacity, is that sprawl costs this state and this country a lot of money. When you start building single-family homes out in the middle of nowhere, the infrastructure that's necessary for those developments, whereas right now what both millennials and baby boomers are looking for is what we're really positioned to develop and deliver on, which is kind of compact growth. And what I mean by that is denser units in our core downtown, our central business district, where people and the parking standards aren't high. Most of those folks aren't bringing two vehicles. They're not bringing school-aged children. We have those numbers. And ultimately, they're low municipal and school costs. So you have folks who are adding to the local economy.
But are they really adding to the local economy to the degree to which we might be planning? And I'm asking because if these are millennials, in terms of the demographics and psychographics, are they commuting back to New York, so they're spending all of their dollars in New York, and are they coming here to do what I call bedroom out? Are they coming here to go to sleep, and they get up the next day and they depart? So are they really contributing
to the local economy?
The way in which we have planned?
I don't have the data right in front of me, but there are models that project the annual spending of people who are commuters into the city. You'll generally have, what we've seen from our numbers in South Orange is that we are attracting young professionals. Both aren't commuting into the city. You might have one person who either stays at home or they work locally, and then you have one commuter. And then ultimately to spend all your time in the city is probably unlikely. You're going to capture a lot of that market on weekends where they're not driving to destinations. You either have the option to take the train into the city or you're shopping locally.
And our Midtown Direct train is such a great facilitator of getting us into the city quickly.
Well, that's a total other story because I just had a meeting in Trent to talk about train capacity, which is where my biggest concerns are, and I'll address that in a moment. But overall, adding people into our central business district, which is something that has always been in our vision plans, in all of our master planning documents, and what is smart strategic planning for our community, I do think is a good thing. When it comes to tax breaks, everybody has kind of misunderstandings about how this works.
That's why, Madam President, you're here to help clear up that nebulousness.
This isn't a scenario where a developer comes in and we say, here, we're just going to give you a tax exemption or a payment in lieu of taxes or an annual service charge. A development may not occur without the incentive. And normally when you look at North Jersey, it's very different from South Jersey. You see a lot of pilots and tax incentives in place because of the high cost of aggregating land. South Orange has a history of not using eminent domain or the strong arm of government. What we normally expect from developers is that they privately negotiate with landowners to assemble lots that are large enough for substantial development. You don't want just a single family home all of a sudden now being 10 stories into the air. So we have private developers who have to assemble or land bank. Normally there are give backs. We expect certain environmental standards or bonuses for LEED certifications, energy efficiency. In the instance of, if you look at Third and Valley, where people are like, oh, it was a big, I didn't vote on that. I wasn't on the board at the time, but I could certainly explain it. What you have there is 215 units. And we are getting substantial parking spaces that if we were to build ourselves, it is more expensive. When government does something, it's always more expensive. There's certain costs that we incur that the private sector does not. So they had the 215 units. We get $700,000 from an annual service charge. And if you look at a parking space, what it takes municipal government to actually build surface parking or structured parking, it could be ranging anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 per space. So however you try and dice that, if you say $25,000 per space times 215 spaces that were built by the developer for us, first to relocate all the transit parkers, but now when those transit parkers aren't in there, it's parking for everyone, and there was a net increase, obviously. We also got affordable housing on site, which is really important. There's going to be roughly 20 or so units, 2 with a veteran's preference, which is something I introduced that I'm pretty excited about.
That's wonderful.
We got $1.1 million for the relocation and the building of a new rescue squad. Now that's something that it's more valuable to the developer, obviously, to have the units, but the rescue squad has been asking for a new headquarters for so long. It's something that they always plan for, but that was village land at the time, and the Board of Trustees said, hold on, like you don't want to build a new headquarters because ultimately if this land gets redeveloped, then all of a sudden, you know, your new headquarters might need to be relocated. So they waited. They got $1.1 million out of that. We had $250,000 or so come in from the developer for relocation of the parking, which ultimately we're putting towards alternative transportation, which I'm really excited about. Excuse me. So ultimately, you have to look at the total package, and a municipality cannot just give tax abatements away. Developers have to go through a pro forma to show us their numbers. We have a lot of professionals outside the governing bodies, specifically our redevelopment council and his team, go through everything that comes in to see if this makes sense.
So the belief is that when we are weighing the pros and the cons,
Yes.
that the villagers are accruing some significant benefits
Yes.
that may outweigh that which we're giving away.
Exactly.
So
and
fair
that's
trade.
That's what it comes down to. And I watch all these politicians, and I don't even like thinking of myself as a politician. That's kind of weird. Like I'm like a student government nerd. Is that everything is balanced. There's not like, you know, when you hear people like this is the right thing to do, blah blah blah. Like you do your best with the information and the opportunities that are presented to you. With that lot, it was surface parking. It's like, is our community character a surface parking lot or an old gas station that's contaminated? When we look at some of our other development opportunities, the Bifus lot, which is now the Gateway.
I appreciate having shopper parking on the corner of Church Street and South Orange Avenue.
Absolutely.
You know, the bane of my existence was trying to find parking downtown.
Yeah.
As a 20-year resident of South Orange, just coming downtown to shop. I mean, I can walk, you know, the mile from my house, but if I'm driving and want to park downtown, it was always a nightmare. So I appreciate that lot with 3 lovely hours to just meander downtown. But thinking about the millennials and the people that we're attracting, do we have the destination South Orange profile? What do we think we need to have? Do we need a concierge at the train station to help people with their dry cleaning? Like, what do we need to attract those people? And again, I'm just wondering if the supply is outpacing the demand.
I would say the answer is no, that it's not. South Orange, I think, is very well positioned to capture what I refer to as the New York market. If you think about our commute time, the 30 minutes into the city, even during the recession, South Orange, I don't want to say we were recession-proof, but we fared, communities like South Orange and Maplewood and Summit, communities that had mass transit fared a lot better during the recession. And are we a destination now? No. But do I think we can be? Absolutely. There's one thing that I'll say, and I would like to tout Montclair a little bit, is that I like to go to other towns to see what's happening during their nighttime hours. And places like Georgetown is another example. I was on DC a few weeks ago. Or exactly. We shut down around 8 or 9 o'clock, even after governing body meetings. I go out and there's not a lot of options, and I would like to keep us open more throughout the night, give opportunities for the college students to have something to do in our central business district, because if we're not providing those opportunities in the CBD, then they're happening in residential areas, and that's what we're trying to...
So what do we need in the CBD?
More anchors. I do think that Landmark, we recently sold our Village Hall. I think Landmark is going to be a destination. Anchors like Above and Ashley Marketplace, those are what I call anchors, is that they locate or they choose South Orange, and yeah, it might be a tax incentive that gets them here, but then all of a sudden you see investment come around them. In the instance of Village Hall, which is going to be from one of the best restaurant groups in the state of New Jersey, there's going to be a beer garden outside. I'm not encouraging drinking, but it's going to activate that corner, and I can guarantee you that we will see investment that's moving more east on South Orange Avenue, and as we strategically get more anchors throughout the town, then you'll see investment happen around them. I think that we have the right people in place. It takes a little bit of time. Getting the vision together takes a little bit of time, but we're seeing a lot of new people get engaged in the process. We're seeing all new volunteers come forward and say, like, we're passionate about South Orange. We want to be a part of helping out.
So
and things have come along. They are activating.
Do you think because
Absolutely.
of your energy and enthusiasm, or is this just the right time, like an arc of activism?
I think it's a little bit of both. First, I think positive energy is contagious, and no matter how many times I get beat down or somebody's not happy about something, like, I try to keep that positive outlook. Like, every day you wake up, if you look in the mirror and you say, like, I tried my best, I worked as hard as I can, I'm ready for the next day. I think positive energy is really, really important, even if it means that people are going to disagree with you, because that's welcomed. I don't mind being wrong. I'm not the smartest one in the room unless I'm talking to myself, and even then, who knows? So I like having smart people around me, and I'm always pitching volunteerism, like, come help, okay? You don't like this? Come be a part of the committee process.
So how do people get involved?
Okay, so there's a million different ways. I think the way typically people get involved is they know somebody, and then that person is like, oh yeah, absolutely, come check out this committee meeting. On the village website right now, which we are redoing, I know it's looking a little beat right now, there's a volunteer directory. You can go read about all the different opportunities. You submit your resume. It's not like this intense vetting. Like, we're happy to have volunteers. Most of our committees, you can just sit in and participate, because we're getting a lot of value from that. You submit your resume, what you're interested in, the Board of Trustees reviews all of that, and then we make appointments. And if one of the committee assignments is full or it's a statutory board, then we'll redirect you to another committee until what you're looking for becomes available. And Steve Schnall is actually great. He's one of my colleagues on the Board of Trustees. He is all about civic engagement. So he is pulling in new people who haven't been the ones who have done all the volunteering the past 10 years. You don't want a small group of people making all the decisions.
Is it young people? Is it older people? Is there a combination of communities participating?
You know what, right now, unfortunately, I think that it does tend to be a little bit older of a group, more male. It's weird if you were to actually look at the demographics. I don't know why that is, but I know that we are making a conscious effort to try and pull in more diversity that reflects our community in each of the different committee opportunities or boards or commissions.
Great. I would like this to be like Scheherazade, where you come back and talk more about
so much
all the
to
wonderful
talk
things
about.
Going on. I know, and
I'm going to peek over at the time. I'm like, no way! Where did this time go? We're just getting started.
But it's great. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course.
It's been wonderful, and there are so many more things that our villagers would love to know about our Madam President and about what's going on. So you must promise to come back and talk to us more.
I'll be back.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is Andrea Fan Hobbs. Thank you so much for joining us on the South Orange Report.